I love the exterior styling of the Corsair. We do have our Corsair badge along the driver-passenger side, along the outside. Nice silver highlights which move all throughout the body of the vehicle, front to back. It's amazing the way that this thing looks, especially this baby blue. It's kind of growing on me a little bit. But a few things about the Corsair. We have a lot of standard technology, a lot of optional technology. It's going to depend on the trim level that you're in and the packaged options that you choose. So we've got the base, we've got the reserve, and then the Grand Touring model, with the Grand Touring being the hybrid version of the vehicle. So there are technically 3 available engine choices, which we'll get to when we get underneath the hood, but there is quite a lot of power depending on the version of the vehicle that you're in. Well, technically even in the base 2-liter, it's actually fairly powerful for what it is. The Corsair has a series of different style rims and tires that are available, just depending on which version of the vehicle you're in and which packages you've opted for. We've got 18, 19, or 20-inch rims and rubber to match, and a series of different style rims as I mentioned earlier, but some of them do look fairly sharp. And you always have the option of doing aftermarket upgrades if you're not a fan of the way it looks from the factory, but these things, machined aluminum, look fairly sharp all at the same time. We've got these moldings there, which plastic, and it's all the way throughout the body. As we kind of get throughout the side of the body, it's got a nice silver highlight, which kind of carries through the Corsair badge we're going to find on the driver-passenger side. We've got some great technology that's available standard and optionally inside of this thing. Along our side view mirrors, this specific one has the option for the full 360 camera. So we've got our side view cameras, we've got our rear camera, as well as our front-facing camera hidden in that grille, which stitched together give us that full 360 view. Now, a few other things to point out, because this one has that added package, we've also got the forward sensing system, which is optional inside of the Corsair. So you're not going to get it in the base model, it is optional and standard, depending on which version of the vehicle that you're in. Now, because of the added tech packages this one has, we do have our LED jeweled headlamps there that do offer dynamic bending. So it's dynamic bending side to side, unfortunately not up and down, but it still is fairly nice at the same time. So really useful, because as we corner left, right, whatever the case may be, the lights will literally shine for us in order to kind of guide the road a little bit more, which is definitely a nice thing. We do have our LED fog lamps there. And then as we move down, so we've got those silver highlights we saw along the side of the body, and they're carried through the front bumper along the very bottom there. It does feel fairly nice, and we've got some nice contrast there. So the overall styling and dynamic look of this is going to depend on which version of the vehicle you're in, specifically the exterior color, because we've got some of these different highlights that'll change with different packaged add-on options and things like that. But some colors in the Corsair look very sharp, like we get into those blacks, and even the red, like I'm falling in love with it the more and more I see it. Like I said, this blue, metallic paint across the board, but it does look fairly sharp inside of this thing. Getting underneath the hood of the Corsair is straightforward. So on the inside, just to the left-hand side of the gas brake, we've got a release. We pull that twice, up it goes. Because it's on hydraulics, we don't need to worry about fiddling with any sticks and things like that. It's just up and open, which is amazing. Now the Corsair does technically have 3 different engine choices that are available, depending on the version of the vehicle you're in. You're going to have the 2-liter turbocharged engine standard. You've got the optional 2.3-liter, and then when you get into the Grand Touring, that's when you get into the 2.5-liter Atkinson hybrid. But this specific one that we're looking at is the 2-liter, which still pushes out a surprising amount of power. Like this 2-liter is 250 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. So a ton of power, really is going to get you A to B fairly quickly, which is nice, and you're doing it in style all at the same time. Woo! As we got a bike ripping it on the highway there. It's amazing, it's bike season right now. But underneath the hood here, we do have easy access to a few things, so we can easily top up some fluids if we need to. We could technically check our oil if we wanted to do that as well, and then we've got easy access to the battery. Now I say check your oil as well because you've got that flexibility. Like if you're handy, you want to kind of do it yourself, you can, but just make sure you're regularly maintaining your vehicle. When you purchase a vehicle, whether it's a Lincoln, Ford, whatever the case may be, you've got the option for a maintenance package directly at the time of purchasing your vehicle. And one of the benefits there is that it covers off all of your regularly scheduled maintenance for a predetermined period of time. So it is nice to know that it's essentially like a hands-free experience, because you get into the options where you can just drop your vehicle off, you can have a concierge pick it up, just depending on where you're located and which version of the vehicle you're in. But there are quite a few different great options that are available being a Lincoln owner. One of the great ones is Lincoln Roadside Assistance, and that covers you for the duration of your powertrain warranty, which is amazing. So if you break down, ever run into any issues, you can call that 800 number, and a tow truck will come and tow you to the nearest Lincoln dealership to help you get this thing serviced if anything ever happens. Taking a peek along our driver's side door, we do have our 5-digit number pad here, so we can easily get into the vehicle if we want to. We can press the bottom 2 buttons there if we want to lock the door, and we can also lock the door by pressing this button there. So we've got like a little hamburger icon there, but we can slide our hand in here if we want to unlock, which is great. And taking a peek along the inside here. So along the driver's side door, we do have a series of options available. We can adjust our seats using the levers along the side there. So because this is the 24-way adjustable, we can adjust each individual leg cushion. Like, watch this. This is such a neat feature. So adjusting each individual leg cushion, which is amazing. It's not going to be standard, but it is optional when we get those 24-way seats, which is great. We've got our seat memory buttons there. And this is a hot button press in order to be able to get into our massage chair seat options. On top of that, we can get into some more advanced controls for the 24-way power seats. We've got our handle there, so nice metallic look. Follows all throughout the door there. We've got this gorgeous white stitching with this nice leather across the door. And then taking a peek along the very top there, we do also have a series of other options. So we can lock the doors. We can power fold the side view mirrors, adjust our side view mirrors there, window up and down. We've got a little storage cubby there, as well as a little storage cubby along the other part of the door there. Moving inside, the Lincoln vehicle does have our welcome lighting, but we do have a little Lincoln scuff plate there along the side. So as we look at the steering wheel itself, we are going to be a power telescoping steering wheel. So we can just kind of make that out there. So 4-way adjustable. Moving along the side, so a series of different buttons that are available there. So one on the far left-hand side, that's going to let us open and close the trunk up from the inside. We can also turn our fog lamps on or off. We can adjust what's going on with our running lamps. I honestly just recommend keeping it in the auto setting. And then we can increase or decrease the brightness of the cluster screen. Now, as we start to move down, we do have our gas brake pedals there. Along the side, we also do have the release in order to get underneath the hood. So if we ever need to get underneath the hood, we're just going to give it a pull twice in order to be able to do it. I love the interior of the Corsair. This thing is amazing. Very, very comfortable seats. Few things to mention about the seats. This specific one has the optional technology package, which gives us the 24-way massage chair seats, and those things are absolutely amazing. I'll show you how they work in just a second, but this is just going to be a basic look at the steering wheel cluster and media screen as well. If you're looking for a fuller walk around, check down below because I've put together some comprehensive videos explaining how all this stuff works, showing you how to set up Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, all that fun stuff. But let's go through some of the basics. So design-wise, I was showing you the driver door earlier. This thing is amazing. We've got this nice black highlight, and we've got a nice kind of matte highlight that follows all the way throughout the dash. We've got a little wood grain that kind of sits right below that. But great highlights. We've got metallic highlights all throughout, dropping into our piano keys down the center stack. This thing looks fairly sharp. But going through some of the basics though, we've got our lane keeping systems. We've got a button on the tip of the left stick to turn that system on or off. And we've got a series of different buttons that highlight very differently. It's kind of neat the way it is because not all the buttons are going to be highlighted and showing. It's going to depend on which options you have selected. So if we don't have the adaptive cruise control system turned on, the bottom buttons along the steering wheel won't be highlighted whatsoever. So they kind of will, they're dynamic. They'll be on, they'll be off, just depending on what's going on with the rest of the vehicle. But there is the 12.3-inch digital screen, which looks amazing. It's not standard across the entire Corsair lineup, but you will find it optionally in some different packages and the higher trim levels of the vehicle. We've got a voice command prompt that's kind of strategically placed right by our left thumb. So if you're 10 to drive, you're 10 and 2. So you right by your left thumb there, you can push that in order to be able to do things like change songs, radio stations. You can navigate using your voice, which is amazing. Now the steering wheel itself is going to be a telescopic, and it's telescopic power, so we can go forwards, backwards, up and down with it. And it's part of the memory seat control. So once we've got our driver's seat set up for how we like it, we've got our steering wheel set up, as well as our side view mirrors, we can press and hold either 1, 2, or 3 along the driver's side door in order to save our own personal profile. But the media screen is the same thing that we saw in the 2021 Corsair, so it's still on the Sync 3 media screen. But it's still a great system. Like we've got the option, we've got our factory navigation, and then we've got the option of using Android Auto or Apple CarPlay through a wired connection. So we can use things like Google Maps, Apple Maps, Waze, and a series of other great options directly through this middle screen. So a lot of flexibility. And we have so many different things that we can do in the middle here. Like we've got some great driver assistance settings, so we can toggle our adaptive cruise system on or off. We can change it out to an intelligent cruise instead. We've got different things for speed sign recognition, pre-collision assist systems. We've got a blind spot system that lets us know if anybody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. And then we've also got the option for our massage chair seats. I gotta do it. So nice, so nice. But we've got a series of options here. So we've got our upper and lower rolling, full recovery, relax mode. It's really useful, especially if you're the type of person to go on longer distance trips and you're going for the Corsair. It's gonna help out with our lower back, and it's so nice. The headrest is also adjustable, so it's a 4-way adjust, so we can go up and down with it. But listen to this. I love it. So we've got that clicking, so we can lock this headrest forward a little bit more if we need a little bit more support for our neck, if we're a little bit shorter, whatever the case may be. All right, and as we start to move down a little bit, so a series of different buttons available. We've got our little P button there, which is for our park assist, so we can have the vehicle help us out with parallel perpendicular parking if we want it. So we've got our parallel park, we've got our perpendicular park, and then our parallel park out. And as you saw there, we can also do a navigate to parking, and we can turn our aid sensors off if we want to. Moving down from there, we also do have a driver assistance button, so we can push this button to get to this main screen, which gives us a few options. We can toggle that start-stop system on or off as necessary, turn our traction control on or off, or jump into some advanced driver assistance settings. Pushing this button brings us back to that driver assistance screen. We've got our 360 camera. So we've got our nice full 360 view there. We can push this hamburger icon to get to a front partial view, or a front 180-degree view. So really, really nice if you're getting out of tight spaces or coming from an underground parking. You want to make sure there's no pedestrians coming from the left or the right-hand side there. But very straightforward to use. As we move down, we do have our piano keys, so our park, reverse, neutral, drive. We don't have a sport mode, but we do have different drive modes like the Excite, which would basically do what that sport mode would do. And as we start to move down a tiny little bit from there, so a series of other options that are available. We've got our volume rocker there. Such an amazing sound inside of this thing. We can turn the audio on or off by pushing this button. We've got our tuning rocker there as well. We can turn the screen off if we want, so we can go for our bass calming screen, or we can turn the whole screen off as well. We can change what source we're listening to. 4-way blinkers. We've got a series of different options for climate control. We've got a menu button there, which is going to give us the option of figuring out exactly what's going on. So you can see there with our air distribution. We've got this button that also has that air distribution setting, but it just doesn't have the dual zone button there. We are dual zone climate control inside of this thing though. So driver passenger side can be something different if we want. We can also have this, so we press the menu button, can turn this thing off. We can also turn our heated steering wheel on or off as necessary, have the vehicle determine what the cabin temperature should be. And then because of the package we've got, we do also have heated and ventilated front seats for the driver and for the passenger side. At a very minimum, you're going to have heated front row seats. That ventilated option is when we've got the Elements package. So because this one's the Reserve 201A, we do have our ventilated seats that are going to be standard. All right, now as we start to move down from there, we do have a few other things. So we've got this little slider there. So this whole console is stuck in place. We could use this top part for a little bit of storage, but we do have this little slider, which we've got a few power points. So we've got a 12-volt power point there. And then we've also got 2 USB ports. So a USB, USB-C. If we ever need to hook up Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, we're going here, plugging in there in order to make it happen. So it's a very straightforward process to do. And then in order to close this, so we've got a little storage area here, but to close, all we do is push, slow release. So you're not gonna pull, you're gonna hear a crack, and you're eventually gonna break that mechanism if you do it too many times. As we move down from there, you can just kind of make it out, but let me drop you down a bit. Let's get that cord out of the way. But we can see we've got our drive mode button there. So drive mode lets us figure out what drive mode we're in. So we've got our normal mode, we've also got our slippery and deep conditions, and then the other way we've also got our conserve or excite. Excite is essentially your sport mode, so it's going to give you the best possible performance out of the vehicle. Conserve if you're just going from A to B, versus the slippery or deep snow. If you're going through crazy amounts of snow, you want better traction stability control setup, we're going to use that as necessary. We do also have our electronic parking brake, so we're going to push down in order to turn the parking brake on. We're going to hit the brake and pull up in order to turn the parking brake off. Actually, where's it the other way? Oh yeah, 100%, it's the other way, okay. So we're gonna pull up in order to turn the parking brake on. We're gonna push our brake, and then we're gonna push down in order to turn the parking brake off. We've got a little storage holder there, and then we've got 2 individual cup holders that do also feature ambient light. So you can see that ambient light turn on, and through the middle screen, we also have the flexibility to adjust the ambient light color. So if you're a bigger fan of, let's say, a blue or a yellow, you've got the flexibility to be able to adjust as necessary there, and we can adjust the brightness of it by dragging the slider up and down as necessary as well, which is amazing. But quite a few different options available. If we're in the auto settings, so you can see the ambient light turning off because it's too bright outside. So the vehicle's just not gonna waste our time by turning these things on unnecessarily. And we do also have our little console there, which has a removable tray, and there aren't any other power points down here, but we do have a wireless charging pad. So if your phone supports wireless charging, we've got the charge pad, which would be directly inside of this console. Now, one thing, I do wish that there were USB ports that would work through this screen so we could be wirelessly charging while we're connected through USB. Although I guess that would be kind of redundant, because if we're charging up anyways, this thing doesn't have wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, we could still hook up over Bluetooth. So if we wanted to, we would be able to do things like listen to YouTube music, we can listen to Pandora, Spotify, our phone music, whatever the case may be, directly through this middle screen. And a lot of sources. So like I said, AM, FM is an option, Sirius XM is standard. We've got a 3-month subscription if you're purchasing a Lincoln vehicle for the first time, which is amazing. But overall, styling features is great. As we move up overhead, we do have an auto-dimming rearview mirror there. We've got basics for our vent controls, our light controls. Let's try that again. Basics for our light controls up there. And we do also have a panoramic roof. But I'll flip you around so you can actually see what's going on. But this thing is amazing. We do have our sunglasses holder up overhead, so typical Lincoln styling. We've got a little business card holder, series of different options if we've got a garage door opener at home. We've got our vanity mirror as well, so visor vanity mirror that also has lights on both sides. And we can extend this bad boy out to block all of the sun, like literally blocks everything out along the side, which I absolutely love it when cars have that flexibility, because there's no likelihood of any sun peeking in and getting through the sides whatsoever. But this thing overall is amazing. Let's jump into the back row and see what's going on back there. Hopping into the second row of the Corsair, this is fairly nice. The seats have a good amount of cushion to them. They look amazing. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have a series of different color choices that are available for the interior. But this thing looks fairly nice, and it's realistically, this is built, I mentioned earlier, on the same platform as the Escape, but the two couldn't be further from one another. Like, it's really the basic bare bones of it, and that's really it. But we've got a lot of different options that are great inside of the Corsair that I love. So we do have the flexibility of moving these seats forwards and backwards in the second row. So if we need to create more cargo space, we can easily do it. And one of the great things is that we've got a lever along the side that we can pull. The one that we would use in order to fold the seats down, we can actually extend it out the other way, and we can recline the seats a little bit. So we can kind of ride in style. But with the sunroof in this one, like I mentioned, so we do have the roof. This thing, I've got probably about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches of headspace with the seat fully upright. When I recline back though, it's closer to about, I'd say maybe 2.5, almost 3 inches. So if you've got some taller people, they'll probably be able to fit back here comfortably. Might need to recline the seats, and then they might need to stretch back a tiny little bit to make it happen, but it's not impossible. But overall styling is amazing. Like I said, the seats are great. I love the leather inside of this thing. We've got some cup holders here, so some basic functional item, which is always a nice thing. In behind the driver passenger seat, we've got some basic pockets there. And then because of the version of the vehicle we're in, we do have heated second row seats on the outboard seats. So no matter what, this middle seat is never going to be heated. We don't have the option for ventilated second row, unfortunately, as of yet. I'm like, hopefully Lincoln announces that sometime soon. Maybe not in the Corsair, but in the new Lincoln EV that's going to be announced in the next little bit. I think it's coming. I really do. But here nor there. Now, as we start to move down behind the armrest, we've got a few different power points. So along the left side, we've got 2 regular USB. Along the right side, we've got a regular USB as well as a USB-C. So lots of USB power all throughout the vehicle here, which is kind of a nice thing. But as I mentioned, styling inside of this vehicle is great. The same type of basic leather and then that white stitching highlight that we have inside of it, we're going to find in the second row. We've got the same type of feel to the doors. We've got this like interesting feel for the door itself. This like little highlight there is kind of unique, similar to what we saw in the first row. We've got an interesting cutout for the speakers, nice silver highlights. Up overhead, we do have our assist handle with a little hook. And then there also is a little cabin control light on top of that. No sort of controls for the temperature back here whatsoever. So we do have the flexibility of adjusting where it's going, but we can't actually control the temperature for the second row inside of the Corsair, unfortunately. And that's the same across the entire vehicle lineup. But the seats are comfortable, the headrests are comfortable. Inside of the second row, it's a two-way adjust, so we don't have that four-way like we do in the first row, but it still is nice to know that we can adjust this thing out as necessary to our own liking. But this thing is fairly comfortable. I definitely wouldn't mind being on a longer distance trip if I had to. Filling up fuel inside of the Corsair is also very straightforward. So just along our driver's side, it's a capless system. So just insert your fuel hose, fill up, and you're good to go. Now, when it comes down to the fuel quality, minimum manufacturer's recommendation across the entire Lincoln lineup is just your regular 87 gas, so 87 fuel. Do you need to use a higher premium fuel? Absolutely not. But here's the kicker. The horsepower and the torque specs that we were looking at are achieved using a premium fuel. So do you need to use one? Absolutely not. But if you want the best possible performance out of this thing, you're ideally going to want to use like an 89 or a 91, and you will notice a difference in the performance when you do. And especially if you're going to be looking at towing using the vehicle. So towing inside of the Corsair is possible. But having said that, when you're putting the vehicle under heavier loads, you want to make sure you're using a higher quality fuel instead. The back end of the Corsair is nice. It reminds me of a lot of the other vehicles in the Lincoln lineup, like especially if you look at the Aviator, just kind of the way the top part of the trunk area kind of pops out. It looks fairly nice. Now we will have our rear wiper standard. Our backup camera is going to be there regardless, and we've got our nice Lincoln badge right along the very back end. We've got our LED tail lamps, and then this one also has got the reverse sensing system on top of that. Now, reverse sensors are going to be standard. The forward sensors inside of this thing will be optional. When it comes to the liftgate, we've got a few different ways we can get underneath, well, inside of the trunk, I should say. So if we look in Lincoln, so just underneath the last L in Lincoln, we go underneath and there is a little button there. So we can push that button in order to have the liftgate lift up. But here's the kicker. The Corsair also does have the option for a foot-activated powered liftgate. And I say an option because it is optional inside of this. It's not going to be standard across the vehicle lineup. But it is nice because all we have to do is just slide our foot underneath in order to get it into the trunk of the vehicle. All right, so cargo dimensions for the Corsair are going to be showing up. So we do have a nice amount of space back here, which is amazing. Now those back seats also have the flexibility to move forwards and backwards as well, which is great. So if you need to create a little bit of extra space for the trunk without folding those seats down, you've got the flexibility to do it. And all it is there's just a bar in between our legs where we would sit in the second row. And we can pull on that bar in order to fold the seats down. But look at how much more space that creates when we just have that seat all the way forward instead. But we do have the flexibility of easily folding the seats down, and we've got a few different ways that we can do it. So just along the side there, along the driver-passenger side, we do have a little release. So if we wanted to, here, let me keep that door open, we can fold down this way if we want to, and that's very straightforward to do. But one of the great things about the Corsair is that along the right side, we also do have a few different buttons there. So we can push and hold, and it's a little release, so as you can see there, so just a power release. Now it is powered down, but it is manual back up. So as nice as it is that we can fold it down from the trunk area if we need to, we do have to manually lift that back up regardless, but lots more space when we have that second row folded down. So I did mention that we do have the flexibility of folding the seats down using the left-right pad in the trunk area by itself. We also do have the option of using the lever just by the left-hand side or right-hand side of the seats, just depending on which version of the seat you're looking at, or side of the seat I should say you're looking at. But this is just the regular carpet liner that's going to be standard inside of the Corsair. We do have the option for a thermoplastic rubber tray instead, which is amazing. So if you've got your fur baby traveling with you, or if you're an outdoorsy type of person and you know things are gonna get messy, you've got that option where you can just spray it down if you need it. But this whole tray, fully removable. So we can just pull this whole thing out. We've got our mini spare tire that's optional inside of the Corsair. We've got some storage trays on the left and the right hand side, and then we've got our little spigot along the very top. So if we ever need to fill up using a jerry can, that's where we're going to make it happen first. Another thing to point out, along the left hand side, we do have a 12 volt power point back here, so we can power some things up if we need to. And then we do also have the option for a cargo cover. So we can just kind of make out the hook. So we've got one left side, right side, and then we can pull it down in order to be able to block off anything that potentially might be underneath. So if you've got privacy concerns for things you might have back here, we've got the flexibility to close it off if we need to. Oh, that's nice. So this is the 2-liter EcoBoost engine, so the turbocharged engine that you're going to find in a lot of other Lincoln and Ford vehicles. But this thing is crazy powerful, like 250 horsepower, 280 pound-feet of torque. Like, it is a good amount of power in this 2-liter engine, 2-liter turbo engine. You've got the option for the larger 2.3-liter instead. So if you're a little bit more of a speed demon, or you're just a bigger fan of having more power in your cars, you're probably going to want to look at that 2.3-liter instead. And then on the flip side of it, if you want to be a little bit more economical, look at the Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring model, and that's where we get into the hybrid instead. So the hybrid, 2.5-liter Atkinson, great amount of power, and it's got, I believe, 28-mile range. I'm going too slow. 28 miles, that's why that system canceled. But it's got a 28-mile range inside of the hybrid version of the Corsair. So a decent amount, it's actually fairly similar to the Escape, which is kind of ironic because the Corsair and the Escape are actually built on the same platform. We do have an option for a heads-up display, which this one does not have, but it is available there. And there are some other great options that you can look at too. I mentioned we do have the wireless charge pad inside of this one. Then again, that's just because one of the added packages that this vehicle has. Not going to be standard, but it is there as an option. It is interesting though, even seeing different packages and different options and things like that that are available, and how the chip shortage has kind of affected everything. Minor things, but there aren't too many things I've noticed so far in the Corsair that are like profoundly different from the 2020 Corsair or the 2019 MKC. All right, excite mode, make me excited. I'm gonna slow down a tiny, well, not slow down, I'm gonna take my foot off the gas. And okay, I'm gonna gas it up a little bit. It's so good, so good. And if you heard there, so I was changing gears out on the fly as well. So you've got the flexibility to be able to do that just because of the paddle shifters inside of this thing. So I absolutely love it. I love that we've got that option. As of right now, I do also have the lane centering system turned on and the lane keeping systems on there as well. But I guess lane centering system, it shouldn't matter. I'm actually curious what's about to happen here because I'm passing a road where I think it might lose the, what's it gonna do? Okay, it kept it. I'm super, okay, cool. I wasn't sure if it was gonna try to take me to the on-ramp or if it was gonna keep me there. It felt like it was almost fighting me for like a brief second, but it's keeping me perfectly balanced in my lane. My hands are technically off the wheel right now, but having said that, it's not permanently off because I will eventually get a message letting me know I should put my hands back on the wheel. But it is such an amazing system all at the same time. Like I love this system. All right, and let's finish this bad boy up in a few seconds. I'm just gonna pull across here so that we can kind of hide things out a little bit from that bright sun hitting this camera. There we go. Oh, that massage chair seat. So nice, so nice. That was a look at the 2022 Lincoln Corsair, looking at everything that you need to know about it, test driving, etc. What did you think? If you have any questions, drop down in the comment section below and let me know. I'm more than willing to bounce ideas off of you. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this video though, let's try that. Feel free to give it a like, subscribe to the channel as well, and until I see you next time, take care.